This spring, there'll be over 50,000 people taking to the streets of London to run the iconic London Marathon. Some for the first time, some for charity, others for glory, and some will be wondering, how do I train for this thing other than just running? I'm a 2:29 marathon runner and also a running coach, and in this video, I'm going to give you 7 totally different marathon workouts. I'll explain when to do them, what their purpose is, and how to do them, and how you can adapt them specifically to you. And then right at the end of the video, I'm going to give you a race pacing strategy formula to help you pace that marathon smart all the way to your goals. And before I dive into the workouts, I have to preface that these should be done after a thorough warm-up and followed by a cool down. Treat your bodies well, people, and they'll treat you back by not getting you injured. And make sure as well that these workouts sit within weeks that include true easy runs too, and some running focused injury prevention, strength and conditioning work. Oh, you like my t-shirt? Well, lucky for you, this is the new Love the Grind merch drop, which releases in just 4 days time on the 29th of February, and we're also releasing tech t-shirts and running vests too, but you'll have to follow my Instagram to see the sneak peek of those in a few days time. Let's get into it. This first one is a continuous long run with marathon pace efforts or chunks, and it's a classic. I set all sorts of variations of this for the athletes I coach in marathon training, and typically you'll start out with more easy running to marathon pace, and over time, over the block, the aim is to increase the ratio of marathon pace to easy running. So for this example, it's a 17-mile long run, and there's a 28-kilometer version as well for simplicity, which I'd class as a middle to top end. That of course depends on how you choose to train. Some people don't go over 2.5 hours, for example, or if this is your first marathon, you might only want to get up to 17 or 18 miles, in which case this might be done later in the block, 3 to 6 weeks out. Others who are incorporating multiple 20+ mile long runs into their block would class this as an earlier block long run workout, and again, it's totally individual to where you're at. And it looks like this. You head out for your 17-mile Sunday long run, and it's broken into pace chunks of 3 miles easy, 3 miles marathon pace, 3 miles easy, 5 miles marathon pace, 3 miles easy. And for a round number kilometers version, you can do 5k easy, 5k marathon pace, 5k easy, 8k marathon pace, and 5k easy. And this is a really nice one to adapt. So if you're just in the first few weeks, maybe you'll go for an 18k long run of 4k easy, 4k marathon pace times 2. Rounded off with 2k easy. It's a great way to ease into running at marathon pace and to get some sustained race pace chunks done. And as these get longer, it's really good practice of having to run at this pace on tired legs at the end of a long run, which you'll need to be able to do in the last 10k of a marathon. And my top tip for running at marathon pace is to always give yourself a range. A 5-second range maybe if you're working in kilometers, and a 10-second range if you're working in miles, to allow for a bit of wiggle room. So add 5 seconds over and under your goal pace in order to find this. Now this next one is sure to get you mentally tough, and it's mile repeats.
Oh, just one little mile, then a rest, and then a few more. Can't be too hard.
Think again, this session stings because there's 8 of them and you're doing them at sub-marathon pace. Not quite as fast as your half marathon pace, as that would maybe be too big a volume and intensity session. So figure out exactly what the halfway point is between your half marathon and marathon pace, and that's the goal here. So if you were aiming for a 4-hour marathon and your half marathon PB is 1:55, the halfway point between those two paces would be 8:57 minute miling or 5:37 minutes per K. So it's 8 of those, with 90 seconds very easy jog recovery between each. You can do this session at any point in the block really, because it's just a really nice bit of slightly faster work to challenge the legs, and if you want to make it a bit easier for the first go, you could cut it down to 5 or 6 reps for an early block workout, or increase the recovery to 2 minutes. A whole 30 seconds extra. I'm stingy, I know. This next one is my favorite session, which you may have seen on the running channel when Sarah gave it a go just a few weeks ago, and it's the 10-10 long run. It's actually 22 miles total, and this is another long run workout incorporating 10 big miles at marathon pace. To start, you've got 10 miles steady, so take the first 1 to 2 miles to ease into that steady pace, rather than hitting it straight out the door, warming up from easy. And for me, I make steady pace for this workout a range, so 40 seconds to 1 minute slower per mile than my marathon pace, or 25 to 35 seconds slower per kilometer. So if you're training for a 3-hour marathon, your race pace would be 6:52 minute miling or 4:16 minutes per K. So your steady pace would be roughly 7:30 to 7:50 minutes per mile or 4:40 to 4:50 minutes per K. Then at the 10-mile mark, you go into a 10-mile chunk at marathon pace. I've done this session on a 1K loop and on a 1.7 mile loop, which proves for some mental training too, but it's a great way to practice fueling if you also want to incorporate practicing picking up bottles, water, gels, etc. during a long run with some race pace involved. And then to round off, there's a 2 mile easy cool down, which I always go straight into, otherwise my legs will just not be able to move at this point. And this is a really key marathon session, but it's hard on the body. You'll be recovering gradually over a few days, so give this one some breathing room within your plan with some shorter, easy days either side. And it's a great one to do 4 to 5 weeks out from a marathon to test how realistic your marathon pace is, because at mile 20, you'll have a good idea of whether it's sustainable or not from how well you've hit the paces in this workout, or not. And to make this one a little bit more friendly for the first try, maybe in week 1 or 2 of a marathon block, chop it down to 6 and 6 miles, or 2 10K chunks, and add a 2 to 3K cooldown on the end. Now, before I get on to session number 4, a word on fueling. If you're training for a marathon or planning to, and you haven't nailed this yet, practiced and finessed how you're gonna fuel that marathon PB, I've got something for you. OTE Sports have kindly sponsored this video, and they've also sponsored my recent 2:29 marathon PB in Houston, where I got through the race thanks to their super carbs drinks and their very kind on the stomach energy gels. This apple one here is 20 grams of carbs, and it's my favorite flavor, and they've got a whole host of other products from protein powders to the most delicious bars. I may have a duo bar addiction at this point. Head over to their website at otesports.co.uk or otsportseu.com to check out the full range and grab 20% off using my code, which is on screen now. It's OTE-Phily20, and this code also supports the channel with a small kickback from sales. Trust me, if there's one thing you don't want to leave for chance on race day, it's your fueling. Find out what you like the taste of, what your stomach likes, and practice with it, at least every week. Next up is K reps, where every other rep your pace alternates from 10K to half marathon pace. Yep, no marathon pace involved here, and yes, I'm talking exclusively in Ks, not in my beloved old school miles. We're keeping in touch with faster speeds, which is going to help marathon pace feel easier and train a different system to help improve your speed, which in turn actually benefits your marathon performance. There's 8 reps, so it's a short session, but those 10K reps are going to feel spicy. Now, I'm feeling nice, so we'll say the odd numbers are at half marathon pace to let you start with that one, and then the even numbers are at 10K pace. You get 90 seconds jog recovery after the half marathon pace reps, so after each odd number, and then 2 minutes after each 10K pace rep, or the even numbers, which is pretty generous, I think. And this is a really nice one to do early in the block to ease into harder, longer types of marathon sessions, especially if you're more used to shorter interval training. It's also a great way to break up longer marathon-paced training sessions in the latter weeks just to wake up the legs and inject a bit of speed. You can either use recent PBs over the 10K and half marathon to decide your paces, or work off a recent race performance by typing it into a calculator like this one to give you the respective paces based off that performance. Next up, we have 2 mile repeats, and these ones come in pairs. That's nice, isn't it? Double bubble. The session is 3 sets of 2 times 2 miles. Yep, that's 12 miles of reps, but they're not all at marathon race pace. Set 1, you've got 2 2-mile reps at marathon pace plus 20 seconds. So if your average marathon pace is 7:30, then these first 2 reps are at 7:50. Nice and chilled, sort of. That 20 seconds is if you measure in miles, so if you're in Ks, you get to add 12 seconds instead. Take a 90-second jog between these, and that's between reps and sets, so yeah, sorry, there's no benefit of any additional recovery between sets unless you need a tactical toilet break. Then set number 2 is 2 2-mile reps at marathon pace plus 10 seconds per mile, or 6 seconds per K. A little bit faster, but still not quite at marathon goal race pace. Then for the final set, you guessed it, it's 2 times 2 miles at marathon pace. I really like this session because it eases you into that faster pace by the end. Yes, it's a good deal of volume, so cut it down to just the last 2 sets if you want a shorter version, but it's also a gentle easing into race pace. Great for training your pacing brain to know what different paces actually feel like, and this is a good one to do mid-block, 6 to 8 weeks out from the marathon, because it's less intense, but again, we're getting those miles in. This next workout is a mammoth, killer, brutal workout that I would only recommend to the seriously tough runners out there. I've done it once, and I threw up twice, stopped to poo once, which was mostly caffeine related. Stick around for the slightly kinder version I'm going to give you in a moment. And you might want to get a pen and paper for this one, or a section on your hand to scribble on with a biro if you're taking this one out on the roads. The miles version of this monster sesh is 3 miles easy, straight into 1 mile at half marathon pace. Yes, ouch, that will be a shock to the system. And then you get rewarded by going straight into 5 miles at marathon pace. That's right, no easy jog recovery after that hard half marathon mile. After the 5 mile marathon pace chunk, it's another absolute treat with another mile at half marathon pace. After that, we cascade down the numbers. Next up is 4 miles at marathon pace, followed by a mile at half marathon pace, 3 miles at marathon pace, 1 mile at half marathon pace, and then you finish with 2 miles at marathon pace before a 2 mile lovely easy jog cool down. Yeah, that's a 23 mile workout. Before I give you a much more realistic and less horrendous version, if you want to do this session in Ks, pause the screen here and follow this breakdown instead, totaling 36k. So to make this kinder and more realistic, I would honestly just take out the first 2 reps. So cut out that first half marathon pace mile and the longest chunk at marathon pace. We'll call this the Monster Revised. It takes 6 miles or 9.5k off, but it makes this one actually doable at 17 miles or 27.5k. And I'm actually not recommending anyone try the OG Monster session unless you're a seasoned marathoner. It really nearly ended me, and I just don't want to end any of you. The Monster Revised is a real key workout that I'd suggest doing maybe 4 weeks out to really test yourself, but with plenty of time to still recover before race day because it's intense. And last but not least, we have the progressive chunk long run. Like a standard progression run where you gradually pick up throughout, but different. Now, when you do this long run, it's kind of a workout too, a bit like some of the other ones I've covered, so if you're usually a 2 sessions in the week person, maybe switch one of them out for a steady run to allow the intensity to shift over to the long run this week. And there's 3 options here. 22 miles for that last third of the block, or those of you seeking those longer longies. 18 miles for a mid-block or lower mileage plan, and 14 miles for your first taste of the long run. Great for those first few weeks of marathon training. For all of those 3 versions, you're going to take 6 whole miles, nice and easy. Your easy run, conversational pace, simple pimple, and this is sounding rather nice, isn't it? Whether you're doing 22, 18, or 14 miles, take that 6 easy off and split the remainder into 4, which is going to give you 3 progressive chunks and 1 easy chunk to round off. So for 22 miles, we're left with 16 miles, 3 chunks of 4 miles where the pace progresses each chunk, and 4 miles easy running to cool down at the end. The 18 mile version leaves you with 3 mile chunks, and the 14 miler gives you 2 mile chunks. The goal with this long run is to be running at your goal marathon pace for the full third chunk, that chunk before the easy jog at the end. Therefore, the 2 chunks before that are in between easy and marathon pace. And this is where I'll let you have a bit of ownership here, because easy isn't always a number, sometimes it's a feeling. But if you want to be super specific though, here's an example. We'll call him Gary. His easy pace today is 9:50 minute miling, or 6:07 minutes per K. And his goal marathon time is 3:40, so 8:23 per mile, or 5:13 per K pace. For Gary's first chunk, he runs at a steady pace. That's also roughly a third of the way towards marathon pace. And yes, some serious maths has been done for this example. He's now running at 9:07 minute miling, or 5:40 minutes per K. After that chunk, let's say he's doing the 22 miler, so he's done 4 miles at that pace. Now he's into chunk 2 and running at a high steady pace. Now we're getting closer to marathon pace. He's clipping along at 8:45s, or 5:26 per K for those 4 miles. And then he gets to his marathon pace chunk. Nice and simple, 3:40 marathon pace. And after that, he's pretty spent and runs the last chunk at his easy pace, which may or may not be slower than where he started, whatever he needs to feel like he's chilling. You can do some hardcore maths yourself, or use a pace calculator to give you a better idea of what these paces should look like, but I'm also a fan of giving yourself a range for these and just feeling it out. And now for that marathon pacing formula I promised you at the start. This is hopefully going to be the key to not running a positive split, provided your race pace goal is sensible and only you can decide that. If you're stuck for finding a goal pace, I'd recommend racing an all-out half marathon and then using a calculator like this one to find a rough marathon pace goal. Then see how that feels when you train at that speed. For this example, let's say you're shooting for a 3-hour, 30-minute marathon. That's the goal time. That works out at an average pace of 8-minute miling or 4:58 minutes per K, and some change. For the first 5 miles, or 8 kilometers, you are going to run 5 to 10 seconds per mile slower than that average, or 3 to 6 seconds slower per kilometer. And hang with me here, this is both forcibly stopping you from going out too quick, and it's also allowing for any extra warming up that's needed from hanging out in that start line wave for quite a while. So these would be your pace ranges for that first chunk of the race. And by going that little bit slower, you're giving yourself the chance to have more left in the tank in the closing stages than if you go off too fast, which is the biggest mistake that marathon runners make. And if you don't have any more to give, well then you maintain that pace, rather than dying a death and hitting the wall. B goal or C goal secured. I digress. From then on, until the last 3 miles or the last 5 kilometers, you're gonna aim to hit that average 8-minute miling or 4:58 minutes per K, and give yourself a deviation of a few seconds over or under. Then for the last 3 miles or the last 5K, you want to start building. Maybe you're going 2 seconds, 3 seconds under that average pace. And then when you get to 1 mile to go, or a K and a half, it is time to empty the tank and full send it. And I know this sounds hard, but you've always got a little bit more to give than you think you do. So go for it. So don't forget to mark your diaries for the 29th of Feb for the new merch launch, and go and follow my Instagram to get access to the website on launch day at 8 AM UK time. Please let me know if you try any of these workouts or the pacing strategy tool that I've given you. I would love to hear how you get on. And if you're looking for some half marathon sessions to get you started, check out this video here where I give you 7 of my best half marathon training sessions, and just like these ones, they're not for the faint-hearted. Good luck in your marathons and love the grind.